When I was 20 years old, I attended college in Northeast Pennsylvania. I lived off campus and had a part-time job at the local mall. The mall was just over a mile away, and I would walk to and from work regularly. The mall generally closed at 9 p.m., and I would finish my closing tasks and start walking home around 9:30 or 10 p.m. at the latest. Occasionally, I could get a ride home with a coworker, but most of them were high schoolers getting picked up by their parents. One night, I was walking my familiar route home. There were never many people out and about downtown until I got back onto campus, which I would cut across to get home. This night, I was only a few blocks from the mall. I noticed a van parked on the next corner, but I didn't really think anything of it initially. The van appeared to be running, and the headlights were on. As I got a bit closer, I noticed the sliding door on the side was open. I definitely noticed, but assumed someone must be loading something in or out of one of the local businesses along the street. As I started to walk past the van, there was a sudden flurry of movement on my left. There had apparently been a man crouched behind the dumpster there, and he was running straight at the open van door. The scary part was that I was directly between him and the van door. He was trying to shove me into the van. I screamed, and I could only credit my complete awkward lack of coordination for what happened next. I tripped and stumbled when he surprised me, so when he hit me, I was already sort of falling to the ground. The force he had hit me with only got my head and shoulders into the open door, while the majority of my body was outside on the ground. I remember he grabbed me around the waist and was trying to hoist me up through the door, but I was just a body of dead weight. He jumped over me into the van, grabbed a handful of my hair, and started to pull me off the ground into the van. This is when headlights from a car turning down the street washed over me, and I could briefly see that it was a white guy in a black hoodie. When I saw the car, I screamed louder and started wildly flailing my arms. I heard their brakes screech, and the guy let go of my hair. I jumped back, and the hooded bastard slammed the door shut. Seconds later, he accelerated away. A cute little white-haired Polish woman had been in the car that turned down the street at the exact right moment to save me. She hugged me and told me I was safe, and it was when I realized I was still screaming. She sat on the sidewalk with me, and then walked me to her car. Cell phones were relatively new, so neither of us had one. She drove with me to the police station and stayed with me while I answered questions and made a report. As far as I know, they never caught the guy. My housemate with a car let me borrow it any time I was going to and from work, and I never walked around downtown again. I had nightmares for a while. I can't help but think of what could have happened to me. I was a teenager in the 8th grade at the time, with no car or transportation other than my bike. There was a railroad directly next to us. The tracks go in a straight line directly leading to Walmart. So if I were to bike to the Walmart, it would take me about the same amount of time as if I walked straight down the tracks. So more often than not, I would walk as I was never really a fan of riding bikes, and I've had back issues since a young age. On this day in particular, I decided to head to Walmart for dumb kid things shortly before the sun was about to set. This detail will come into play later. Basically, I went to the store and got distracted and was just looking around. I bought some food and drinks and some trading cards, but left as the sun was going down. It was about a 20 to 25 minute walk home, and I decided to head down the tracks again. At about a 10-minute mark, it was getting very dark, and I was generally fearful and an anxious child due to my autism. I was scared of the dark until I was about 14 and a half. I would often have nightmares or see things that weren't there in my closet or dark corners. Since it was too dark to see, I was extremely nervous and hypervigilant. 5 minutes later, I could swear I was hearing footsteps crunching in the rocks, lining these tracks that weren't mine. I stopped a few times to listen and confirmed someone was walking towards me from a significant distance away. I couldn't see them at this point because of the darkness and lack of lighting across the railroad tracks. I had no phone or flashlight of any kind. At this point, I started freaking out internally. At first, I didn't know what to do, but as the sound of the footsteps got closer, I decided to call out and let them know I was coming towards them. I stopped as I did this and asked if someone was there. Well, I know this might seem silly as an adult, but I was used to my brain playing tricks on me in the darkness, and I was convinced I was hearing things. No response. At this point, the footsteps were getting closer, but it was still difficult to distinguish over my own, so I stopped. The footsteps continued for a brief moment, and then they stopped too. I called out again and said, "Hello, is anyone there?" No response again. I was still prepubescent and had a child's voice. I feel like any reasonable adult would have responded and said, "Yes," or "Yeah, I'm just walking," or whatever, as I had genuine, noticeable fear in my voice. After I received no response yet again, I told myself I was just imagining it and continued on my journey. At this point, being just under 15 minutes from my house, I heard them again, footsteps coming closer as soon as I started walking. I started yelling and making whooping sounds, thinking it might be some sort of animal. I yelled things such as, "I know you're there," and "I have a knife," which was total BS, but I thought it might encourage this person to respond. Still nothing. A few times as I was speaking, I would hear the footsteps stop again. Finally, about 3 to 5 minutes later, stopping multiple times and hearing his footsteps stop, I start seeing this guy materialize out of the darkness. He had on blue jeans and a dark hoodie with the hood completely masking his face from the distance. I was instantly relieved for whatever reason. I was relieved to know that I wasn't crazy. And I began verbally vomiting to this guy that I was just scared, and I didn't know that he was on the tracks for sure. He again did not respond, and this was before mainstream Bluetooth audio, and I didn't notice any headphone cables in, even when I passed him. Because he didn't respond, I was eyeing him warily as he approached, and we locked eyes. He gave me a cold and blank stare, with a menacing look in his eyes, like he was thinking about what to do. He had his hands shoved into his pockets, and as I was passing him, he looked like he was going to pull something out. I was a very scrawny kid, and even though I had back problems, I was fast. It just hurts when I run too long. From then on, I was going down the tracks at a full sprint. It was all a blur. I tripped and fell twice, as well as soaked myself in mud when I tried to get across the small ditch, separating the track from the trailer park while I got home. I never told my mom, and I never walked those tracks again at night. It's been about 11 years. It was an autumn night, and I decided to take a little walk around our housing estate with my dog, Sunny. Sunny is a big black Labrador mix. She is really good and cuddly, but she also hates other female dogs. She also has a strong protective instinct, and always snarls when she doesn't know or doesn't like someone or something. There were no street lights inside the settlement. The only lighting was always at the house's entrances. It was a small park with small playgrounds between the rows of houses. But, as already mentioned, everything was in complete darkness. That's why Sunny was never seen, but only to be heard when she was chasing a rabbit into the bushes. It also goes without saying that she wasn't on a leash. I only need it when other female dogs are nearby. Sunny listens to me and always comes when I call her. While I strolled comfortably through the dark settlement and froze, Sunny ran happily through the area and the bushes. I only guessed where she was because I couldn't see her. Only heard her from time to time. At some point, I noticed a small shadow that was whizzing around me. When I looked more closely, I could see Sunny. She ran in large circles around me. And the place where I was, I thought she was chasing something. But the circles she drew grew smaller and smaller. She didn't make any noise. I went on comfortably because I thought she was just having her zoomies. At some point, I didn't see her anymore, but I went on knowing she would follow. Then I heard a sound. Footsteps. But they weren't my own. I was only startled because they were so close behind me, and it was so sudden. So I turned around, and I couldn't see anything thanks to the darkness. I got nervous and called for Sunny, because it could have been someone with a dog. Sunny didn't come, and I easily panicked. She suddenly stood in front of me, and out of nowhere, she began to growl as violently as she has never done before. My blood froze because it couldn't be a good thing. Then she started walking straight ahead, growling about 2 or 3 meters. When she stopped at that moment, I could recognize a figure, completely in black. This person was shocked and in front of Sunny. They didn't move, and Sunny started barking like there was no tomorrow. This person slowly walked backwards towards the light at the house's entrance. And then I saw Sunny, bare teeth, in front of a young man wearing a hooded sweater, and probably started experiencing the same fear as I did when I noticed him. Because of as close as he was when he snuck up on me, he couldn't have had anything good in mind. Since it was too dark, however, he could not see Sunny, and she must have surprised him right at that moment. Sunny started to jump, and at that moment, the guy let out a scream, and you could hear something falling out of his hand onto the floor. He ran, and my dog followed. After I'd relieved myself from the shock, I called out to Sunny as loud as I could. After a short time, she was standing right in front of me, wagging her tail. I took her on her leash, and she went to where the guy had dropped something indeed. There was an arm-thick branch at the floor, and he certainly didn't have it to throw sticks. At home, it gradually dawned on me that Sunny didn't have her zoomies when she was circling me, but that she had long since noticed and kept an eye on that guy trying to protect me. On the other hand, that was creepy, but also a relief. I was, and still am, very grateful for this dog.